Welcome to the podcast Like You Didn't Know. This is week number 8. This week's scary movie of the week is called 47 Meters Down, Uncaged. Now, there have been a couple of, 47 Meters Down. The first one, I think, had Mandy Moore in it, and she was, in a cage with her, I think it was her sister, and they had to fight sharks. But this one is with some younger teenage girls, and they are living in Mexico at the time. And they, as teenage girls do, disobey their parents and go cave diving, which none of them were experienced. I think the leader, she had only done it maybe once. But anyway, they decide to go, we'll just go real quick and then we'll come back out. Of course, that never happens, but they get into a mess and people start dying. It's more of I guess it's a scary movie because people die and they're having to fight sharks and stuff or get away from sharks. But to me, it's more of a thriller because it's not like demons and stuff like that. It's just like people pretty much dealing with nature that they should have never been around in the first place. But if you like creature features, which is one of my favorite movie genres, I definitely recommend it. This week's ridiculous lawsuit is one where the person actually won. So maybe it's not completely ridiculous, because it does still, to me, it makes sense. But as we all know, it tend to be dangerous at a baseball game. I know they have the nets and stuff up to kind of protect you if a stray ball comes flying, but especially if they're for real professionals, they could easily hit that ball over the net, and people have been hit. And then there are some sides of the baseball field that do not have nets because I guess somebody has decided that, the balls will never come this way. So, I'm sure we've all seen on TV, or Instagram, Facebook, wherever, where it seems to always be children, but where children have been hit in the head by baseballs, just randomly. Either they knew that it was coming their way and they were trying to catch it, or it just was like a fly ball. But anyway, a woman in Massachusetts, she filed a lawsuit against the Boston Red Sox and their team owner, in 2014, when a batted ball struck her. She said that the player failed to inform her that he might try to throw the baseball in the stands. If it was hit, I guess, I don't think technically he was trying to throw it in the stands, but that was the excuse she used. But she did suffer some pretty major injuries, like facial fractures and neurological damage. It doesn't say how much she won, but I'm sure it was a nice chunk of change. But, I can only imagine how hard it was to recover from something like that. And she'll probably never be the same. So, to me, that's definitely a valid lawsuit. And she deserved to win because, essentially, you were taking a risk going to those games. But if he was throwing a ball to people and didn't let people know that he was about to throw the ball to people, then no one could prepare themselves to kind of duck or sit down or just look and make sure that a ball is not coming your way. So I guess it's a good thing she won. Hopefully she made a full recovery and hasn't had any lasting injuries. This week's bizarre ways to die is a man that was run over by his own vehicle. Me personally, I have seen many Facebook videos, Instagram videos, just videos on the internet where people, I guess, either don't put their cars in park and get out and the cars continue moving. I've seen them try to stop the cars, stand in front of the cars and stop them. I've seen many different reiterations of how someone could essentially be run over by their own vehicle and die. It doesn't really go into detail about how or what happened, but I can only imagine. He probably was rushing, not thinking, didn't put the car in park, or accidentally put it in neutral and got out and was standing in front of it or behind it and was just sitting back there and just got run over. Basically, the moral of the story is pay attention. It's never, whatever you're trying to do is not important enough that you cannot remember to put your vehicle in park. I'm sure we've all been there where you're rushing to do something, rushing to get out the car, you forget to turn the lights off, you forget to maybe even forget to close your door, but or lock your car. Like, it's just slow down, pay attention, because it could go from okay to bad in an instant. So just be careful. Cars are heavy. I know we all are we're used to riding in cars. Like, cars don't scare us, but a car is definitely a weapon, and it can definitely kill you.
As we all know, there is also a discrepancy in the rate of pay that women get compared to men, and that's men of any race. White males, as we know, tend to make more than probably anybody, but there is definitely a discrepancy between what a woman makes doing the same job and her male counterparts. And there have been many lawsuits about it. People have protested about it, probably not to the extent that anything would actually change, but it's very well known that women make less than men. And it's even higher, there's an even higher discrepancy when it's women of color. And when I say women of color, I'm talking about women that are not white, black, Hispanic, uh, any other race that is not Caucasian female. They tend to make less. And black women tend to make, or women of color tend to make less than white women. So the discrepancy, I mean, is there. You could look at, and I know a lot of people, oh, well, you can't tell, it's illegal to tell about your salary or talk about your salary. That's incorrect. And you can look it up. You can fact check me, but it is incorrect that you are not allowed. And this goes for any state. You can ask your coworker how much they make. Now, whether or not they choose to tell you, that's on them. But essentially, you can't get fired for asking the question, is what it boils down to. And so apparently some women have done this, and they've realized, okay, well, me and John are doing the same job, but John makes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 more than I do. That's not fair. And of course, I mean, when you get hired for a job, they don't tell you what other people make, and they don't tell you what the person that made that was in the position before you made. Uh, you could ask, maybe that probably may not be the best question to ask during an interview, but I feel like we are definitely entitled to know that we are being paid fairly, and especially with the cost of living going up, and like I said, a lot of women of color tend to be single parents. So not only do you have to deal with the fact that you are trying to raise a family on one income, and even if you're not, I mean, I don't have any kids, but I still have to pay. I still have to have rent, pay for rent. I still have to get a car. I still have to pay for gas, food. I still have to buy all the things that a two-parent household would have to pay for, with or without children. And stuff is not getting cheaper. It's getting more expensive. And people, we can barely afford to live. Now, I mean, a two-parent household where both parents work, it may be a little bit easier to be able to afford a higher quality of life, or even just the basic necessities. But I can only imagine a single mom trying to pay for her however many kids she has, don't know whether or not she gets child support. If she does, it may or may not be that much. It may not be enough to really do anything. It just depends on where they went to court, what the verdict was. But I can only imagine how difficult it would be to make ends meet. And then to come to find out that you're making less than one of your coworkers, like I would raise hell. Like, I would have a definite problem. And there are, I mean, I didn't look up any of the names, but I know that there are people lawyers and different companies, uh, that specifically work with things like that to try to get people equal pay. And I mean, it makes sense, because there's no way in the world that two people doing the same job should not be paid the same thing. And I feel like that's with anything. Like, even, I think, look at people working in restaurants where they're finally making $15, $16 an hour. Depending on the restaurant you work at, you may make more, you may make less. Like, I feel like there are some things that should just be universal. Just simply because you're essentially doing the same thing. Now, of course, if you're doing something with, maybe you're the grill master or something like that, so it requires a little bit more uh, knowledge or responsibility or whatever, of course you should be paid a little more. But if both of y'all are working the counter, and I go to McDonald's and make 10, and I go down to Wendy's and make 15, I feel like that's a problem. And I feel like the government, they want to be so involved in everything that I've never voted on any of that. I don't know who makes that decision, who decides that, but I feel like stuff like that should be brought to the people for them to decide what's fair and what's not. That concludes this week's podcast. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, you can hit me up on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all the things. The original TIP. You can also send me an email, tiffany688@gmail.com. If you know me personally, you got my phone number. But so for right now, my podcast can be found on Anchor and also on Spotify. Um, I'll talk to you guys next week.